Welcome to the Homeschool Show from North Carolinians for Home Education. Our goal is to help you homeschool with confidence and joy. I'm your host, Matthew McDill, and we have once again in the house, John Lewis.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That's good.
Are you ready for your dad joke?
I'm ready.
And what do you call a hippie's wife?
A hippie's wife. What is that?
Mississippi.
Okay. Mississippi.
I love it when I get you to chuckle. That's great.
Yeah.
As long as I can get you to laugh out loud, that's good.
For sure. All right. What do we have planned today?
Today we're going to take a look at the homeschool news. We'll tell you more about the recordings from this year's Thrive Conference and give you another legislative update. Then we're going to have Homeschool Conversations. In April, we had our Capital Fest event, and Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson spoke to the homeschool families. We listened to the first part a couple of weeks ago, and now we're going to listen to the rest of it. After that, we're going to hear a conversation that Matthew had with the Faisons, an inspiring family he met at Capital Fest. Then we're going to have the Homeschool Tip of the Week. How do we lead our kids in the use of digital devices? That's a really important topic. Yeah. And then last but not least, Homeschool Helps with Amanda. Amanda's going to continue her discussion with us on the various approaches to homeschooling by taking a closer look at a topic called unschooling.
That's right. So I just want to remind you again, a couple of news items here. First is to remind you about the MP3 audio recordings that you can buy from the conference. We have all the keynote sessions. We have all of the workshops recorded. You can go to nchu.com and go to the top where it says media. And all of the recordings there for 2023 are available. $6 each. You can buy the whole thing, all of them for $180. And so we had Dr. Bill Brown. He was our teen speaker and spoke on a lot of worldview issues. We had Belinda Bullard. These are our featured speakers, by the way, founder of Blessed Heritage Educational Resources, a leading provider of multicultural history curriculum featuring African-American presence and contribution. We had Kirk Martin, founder of CelebrateCalm.com. Steve and Megan Scheibner, they're biblical counselors at CharacterHealth.com. Sonia Schaefer, who's with Simply Charlotte Mason, and Andrew Pudawa, and he's the founder and principal speaker of Institute for Excellence in Writing. And I just want to recommend one recording you should buy, and that's the keynote that Andrew gave on Friday, Preparation for Persecution, a Curriculum Proposal. Now, amazingly, a lot of people showed up for that.
Yeah.
Here were some of the principles very quickly. Education is the cultivation of appetites or attitudes. The appetites of a Christian should be to follow Christ. And then finally, he said that to follow Christ is to embrace service, selfishness, sacrifice, and suffering, even unto death. This talk just blew me away because it just got to the heart of the gospel and to the heart of what it means to follow Christ in self-denial. Yeah. I mean, it was just amazing. So I really recommend you guys picking that one up. A few issues for legislative update. One, just want to mention again that there are 7 bills currently being considered that could affect home education in North Carolina. We're watching them all very closely. One of them, of course, is SB 411 that we've been promoting and encouraging. I would just encourage you to go to nchu.com/legislative-update because even when this show airs, there could be changes to what's going on. So you want to check that out. The most controversial bills that are being considered would do one of two things. Number one, they would add regulations to homeschool families. And one of them really wants to add a lot of regulations. And the second is to create opportunities for homeschools to receive government funding. So obviously, the first thing we want to say is that NCHE will always oppose, and we will encourage all families, homeschool families, to oppose any changes or increasing of regulation of homeschool families. So when any of those come to the place where we're able to take action, we're going to let you know about that. You can also go to nchu.com and sign up for the weekly email because you will get alerts through that email of actions that you can take to help make sure that there are not increased regulations in homeschooling. There's one bill in particular that's trying to do that. The other is that there will be opportunities for homeschools to receive government funding, as I mentioned. And I just want to mention once again that NCHE, as most homeschool families also believe, that we do not desire or support direct funding from the state. Now, and the reason is because we believe that at some point regulations will sneak in eventually. Now, there's a really big movement right now, especially with school choice and all of that, and that is the money needs to follow the parent. This is something that even a lot of Republicans are saying the money needs to follow the parent. So I just want to mention this. We would support a non-refundable tax credit bill. So this is something we should be talking about. If they want us to keep our money, then we'll keep it. We'd rather not give it and then receive it with regulation. So we would love to support, and we should be talking about this in our groups and families, a non-refundable tax credit bill similar to child tax credits that specifies exactly what information homeschool families must provide on their tax forms to receive the credit. So keep that in mind, and let's be talking about that as a solution to that. So be sure you check out that website I mentioned. We'll have a link in the show notes, and sign up for the newsletter so you can know what is going on.
Absolutely. Important stuff. Today in our Homeschool Conversations, we're going to take a look at Capitol Fest. In April, we had our Capitol Fest event, and Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson spoke to the homeschool families. And we listened to the first part of that a couple of weeks ago. Now we're going to listen to the rest of it, a portion of that presentation. And also, Matthew met an inspiring family at Capitol Fest and had a conversation with them, James and Dee Faison, and their children, Jameson and James. Is that James?
James the third. That's right.
James the third.
That's right. Let's listen.
So, all right.
This job is nothing like I expected it to be. Then again, this job is everything I expected it to be. But I can tell you this, even serving in the United States Army, I have not felt a sense of pride like I have serving the people of North Carolina. I really haven't. When I walk down the street, when I go into grocery stores and people recognize me and they say thank you for what you do for the state, it gives me great pleasure to know that I'm able to serve the people. And here it is. I'm not just here to serve those people who voted for me. I'm not just here to serve those people who agree with me. I'm here to serve everybody in this state. Because here it is. At the end of the day, we may disagree on 3, 4, 5 issues, but I guarantee you there are 100 issues that we all agree on and that we all want to come together and find common ground on so that we can have great solutions in this state to the problems that we face. And that's the kind of person that I want to be. That's the kind of person I've always been, as a matter of fact. And that's the kind of elected official that I want to be. I don't want to rule from on high, tell folks what to do, my way or the highway. That doesn't fit me. It never has, and it doesn't fit me as Lieutenant Governor, and it won't fit me in any other role that I take on, because we govern by consensus. That's how we're supposed to govern. We're supposed to invite you, your neighbors, your co-workers. We're supposed to invite you in, ask for your advice, ask for your consent, and then we're supposed to move forward to try to solve the problems that you face. Now, why should we be asking you? Why? Well, it boils right down to this. It boils down to the essence of why you're here today. Why are you educating your children? Why are you educating your children at home? Because you are the expert when it comes to your children. Nobody knows your child like you do. There's some great teachers out there. There's some great administrators, and there's some great principals. But none of those people will ever know what you have in your heart for your children. And so taking on that role to educate your children at home, it speaks directly to something that I've been talking about all across the state, and that's this. When we don't talk to our constituents, when we don't ask for their advice and their consent, we're missing out on the best experts in the state. We want to reach out to those experts, and not just reach out to them. We want to let them know that we are not your leaders. We are your servants, and we need to roll out the red carpet for you and find solutions that work in your lives. So thank y'all for being here. God bless you. I'm going to open up the floor to some questions now, but thank y'all so much for having me. We'll appreciate you. I think the most challenging aspect of being in my position has been the things that I've said and the things that I believe being misrepresented, quite frankly. We find out a lot. I don't mean to demonize the media, but the media sometimes is less than honest. The media is sometimes sensational. They don't sometimes twist the truth and tell half the truth to gain viewership and to garner favor with certain folks. And I think that's been the toughest thing that I've had to deal with, because I've never been a person who's bear false witness against others. And I find it tough when folks bear false witness against me. And so that's probably been the toughest fight we've had since we've been in office. Yes, sir, young man back there. He said, "What do you think about our government today?" Should I take that question? All right, here it is. My honest assessment of our government today is that I'm not going to say most, many of our elected officials are politicians who have their heads in the wrong place. Let me tell you what I mean by that. People have asked me why I wanted to be the lieutenant governor, and I told them I didn't want to be. I didn't run for this position because I wanted it, because I wanted to be the lieutenant governor. I ran for this position because I wanted to serve the people. That's the attitude that elected officials should have. Elected officials should not go into office because they want to be a senator or a congressman. They should go into office because they have a sincere desire to serve their state, their nation, their constituents. Too many of our elected officials don't have that. And you know how we fix that? You know who can fix that? You can. You can take back the keys of control and fix it and start electing people who want to serve, not rule, not be in control, not go and get rich and get reelected, but who want to serve the people who have put them in office. That's my assessment of politics today, and I think that's a huge thing that's wrong right now. Too many people serve in their own buckets, refuse to talk to each other, and simply protect their own self-interest instead of serving the people who elected them. Yes, sir.
What is your view on the heartbeat bill, sir?
I desperately would love to see North Carolina pass a heartbeat bill. I would love to see it pass. But now that being said, while I'd like to see a heartbeat bill pass, here's what I'd also like to see passed. I'd like to see some legislation passed that shores up our adoption process. I'd like to see some legislation passed that's going to fix some of the problems that we have with our child care system. I'd like to see some legislation passed that's going to fix some problems that we have with our health care system concerning young mothers and young fathers and young families. You see, because I came to a realization, and I came to this realization sitting in a crisis pregnancy center. I can't end abortion with a law. I can't. People are still going to have abortions. But more to the point, I can't serve God by standing on a platform and pointing at somebody telling them that you can't have an abortion and walking away. I serve God by being an elected official that builds a society that values life. Not just in the womb, but once that life is born out of the womb.
We've been homeschooling since birth. I always like to say birth because it starts when they're born and you're potty training and you teach them how to eat, you're doing their alphabets, all of that counting. So we've been training ever since we started having children.
I'll say that one as well too, because we really wanted to give our children a biblical foundation, and I have to give all the credit to the Lord, but at the same time, the Lord gave the vision to my wife, and she brought it to me and she said, "Hey, what do you think about homeschooling?" And I was like, I don't know about homeschooling. I grew up in traditional school, but it was the greatest ideal, and it was the greatest investment that we've seen as well too, and our children are blessed as a result of it. And when my wife said they started at birth, our son, he's 11 years old, so we've been doing it for 11 years now.
The most important part of homeschooling for us is every morning we start our school day with our devotion and really seeking the Lord and delving into His Word, and we all pray. Each one of us pray, and we just thank God for the day so we can have a good, productive day and get our day started. So laying that biblical foundation and making sure we lead by example by allowing our children to see us getting our word and live out our word through applying it every single day.
My favorite part is normally, I'll just say since the pandemic, I was going into the office and working. But then as a result of the pandemic, I had opportunity to see exactly what was going on during the homeschooling. So being able to pretty much be right there in the school and be a part of definitely the devotion time, the prayer time as well too. Those things that I had missed out on initially being working on the job. But thank the Lord for my wife, like I said, for this ideal of homeschooling, because our children love it. I'm enjoying every single bit of it as well too, and see the progress as well.
Yes, my favorite part of homeschooling is when we are on our own schedule. We get to do what we get to do, and blessing to be able to learn our curriculum, having that biblical foundation as well.
My favorite part of homeschooling is like a biblical foundation, and when we do science and history and math, because it has a biblical foundation in it and scriptures and learning God's word and able to be on our own schedule. My favorite subject is math.
Make sure and pray about the decision. And also within that prayer, just know that you're making a decision it's the greatest investment. Investing in your children and sacrificing on, hey, maybe I don't need the newest car. Maybe I don't need the latest fashions of clothes. But we're making this investment in our children. We tell them all the time, hey, mom and dad, we're investing. And with an investment, what do we want? What do we want? We want a return. A return on that investment. So definitely to the new families, it can be done. And I got encouraged by this program today, and we met a family who had a high school son. He was 10th grade. So just seeing even other families as well too that are going through the same process. There's other support systems out here as well. So thank God for those other people that are out here that are homeschooling. You're not alone. We're in it together.
All right. So today on our Homeschool Tip of the Week, we're going to discuss how do we lead our kids through the use of digital devices. Now, we're going to read some statements from the Surgeon General. Surgeon General issues new advisory about effects social media use has on youth mental health. While social media may offer some benefits, there are ample indicators that social media can also pose a risk of harm to the mental health and well-being of children and adolescents. Social media use by young people is nearly universal, with up to 95% of young people ages 13 to 17 reporting using a social media platform, and more than a third saying they use social media almost constantly. That's crazy. And U.S. Surgeon General Dr. Murthy said the most common question parents ask me is social media safe for my kids? The answer is that we don't have enough evidence to say it's safe, and in fact, there is growing evidence that social media use is associated with harm to young people's mental health. Children are exposed to harmful content on social media, ranging from violent and sexual content to bullying and harassment. And for too many children, social media use is compromising their sleep and valuable in-person time with family and friends. We are in the middle of a national youth mental health crisis, and I am concerned that social media is an important driver of that crisis, one that we must urgently address. These are troubling statements.
Yeah, it sure is. And I don't usually necessarily put a whole lot of weight on a advisory from the Surgeon General.
Right.
But it's really amazing. I mean, for it to reach this level and for this advisory to be given is notable and historic. I don't think it told us stuff that we probably didn't know.
Right.
I want to mention that he mentions a few things about what parents can do. Number one, create a family media plan. We're going to talk about that right now. How can we create a media plan? Another, create tech-free zones and encourage children to foster in-person relationships. Another one, model responsible social media behavior. Another one, teach kids about technology and empower them to be responsible. Just to set this up, I want to go back to the talk I mentioned about Andrew Pudewa, who gave about discipleship and the idea of appetites,
Right.
or desires, because I think that's really key here. What is the heartbeat? What is the desire, the motive, the draw of the kids? And the fact is, and I see this in my own kids, the draw to the phone, to the device, to video, to social media is so powerful.
Yeah.
It's so powerful. And the thing is are we developing in our kids a desire to know the Lord, a desire to learn, a desire to engage and serve and love people?
Right.
Or are we allowing this to take place? It's just so powerful. And I think there's such an addictive nature. I think we need to put it in the context of there are certain things I'm going to let my kids, deal with, but I don't necessarily put drugs in front of them. Here, try this out and we'll see what the effect is. But in some ways, we're just allowing the pressure of the society to be so strong. So I think we should take it really seriously. I just want to run through a few things here about what we can do. First of all, you don't have to give your kid a phone, and you don't have to let them have social media. That's the assumption. Now, I think at some point you have to give it to them. You have to do it. But when you do give it to them, you can put parental controls on it. You can lock things down. There are all sorts of ways that you can make sure that the kids are safe in their use of their technology. I don't even let some of my kids have any social media until they're certain ages. We have time limits on video games, time limits on screen time. Their phones just shut down on certain apps, all of that kind of stuff. We have filters at the modem level and at the computer level to make sure that they can't get in certain kinds of areas. I would just mention talking to your kids about pornography. Tell them what it is and how to avoid it and how dangerous it is. I mean, there's so many things here, but we're not saying anything that isn't something that you can think of yourself, but we're just putting out a reminder today that if you're not aware and taking initiative and action on what your kids are doing on their devices, then you need to take that step today.
Yeah. There's a lot of practical help out there. Well, we're going to move on next to our Homeschool Helps with Amanda. Amanda continues her discussion of various homeschool approaches, and today she's looking at unschooling. So take a look.
Welcome to Homeschool Helps with Amanda. I'm Amanda Wares, Homeschool Helps Director with NCHE. So for the past several weeks, we've been talking about all the different methods, the main methods of home education, the approaches to homeschooling. Today, we're going to talk about one that you might hear about, but maybe not as much, and that is unschooling. So I'm going to read to you something that I thought was a really great description of unschooling. Unschooling isn't a recipe, and therefore it can't be explained in recipe terms. It's impossible to give unschooling directions for people to follow so that it can be tried for a week or so to see if it works. Unschooling isn't a method. It's a way of looking at children and at life. It is based on trust that parents and children will find the paths that work best for them without depending on educational institutions, publishing companies, or experts to tell them what to do. So I thought that was a great kind of summary of what unschooling really is meant to be. So unschooling is a method that was probably first made popular by John Holt a number of decades ago now. Holt was a modern educator and author who came up with the word unschooling, and he based it on, at that time, there was a popular advertisement for 7-Up, and it was called the Uncola. So he coined the term unschooling to mean education without the school. So unschooling is meant to be a holistic method for educating a child. You might also hear terms like child-led learning or experiential learning. This would be learning done primarily without textbooks, although if a student is interested and desires to learn more and has textbooks available to them and that's what they want to use to learn more about a subject, then they could do that, certainly. But the structure of textbooks and assignments and quizzes and tests and things like that, the framework of probably more traditional school is not in place with unschooling. Now, what are the pros and cons? Pros would be it's a very natural way to experience and to learn. It builds on a child's natural, innate curiosity and drive to learn new things. It also relies on a child development and growth. And it's very relational. Another pro is that doesn't have to be all or nothing. So if you're uncomfortable with the idea of unschooling everything, but maybe you could approach history or science with more of a child-led or experiential approach, and that would be more comfortable for you. The cons would be, again, like I said last time with Charlotte Mason, unschooling is completely unfamiliar to most of us that were raised in traditional school environments. And it's difficult to model something that we've never experienced ourselves. It's also hard to trust that our children will want to learn and explore and educate themselves, essentially, rather than just sit and play video games all day. That would be my fear talking right there. You may also not have the support of other people in your circle for unschooling because it's probably not as common. So that might be a deterrent also. Now, I want to make sure that we don't confuse unschooling with the idea of de-schooling. I've seen people use these terms interchangeably, and they are not at all the same thing. So de-schooling is a process that's often encouraged for those who are just starting to homeschool, pulling someone out of brick and mortar school. It's going through a process, probably weeks, maybe even months, of deprogramming yourself and your student from that traditional brick and mortar school environment and really taking off the old and putting on the new of homeschooling and giving yourself time to really do that. That is de-schooling. Unschooling, whole different thing, whole different approach to education. So if you want to know more about that, you can search for de-schooling. You can search online for unschooling. There are lots of resources out there, many articles, some books. And tune in next week. We will be moving on to the next approach to home education. So I really hope that helps today.
Well, we want to thank everyone once again for joining us this week. Don't forget to send your questions and your feedback to the Homeschool Show at nche.com. And as always, you can find us at nche.com/the Homeschool Show for any other information.
Until next week, continue to homeschool with confidence and joy.